so I figured I'd go ahead and do a little update walk around on this bike. It's been a while since I posted on this, but figured I'd get this video out of the way before posting anything else. So here it is. This is my 72 FX Shovelhead. It's gone through a decent amount of changes since the last time I posted it. Pretty much went through the whole bike and changed a little bit of everything and just kind of made a nice bike out of what I already had. I guess I'll just go ahead and start off from front to back. Front end, this is the same 21-inch Star Hub wheel that I had. This is just a modern rim that I found on OfferUp. Found a modern big twin wheel and swapped the hub out, lace and trued it, and that's all I'm running. As you can see, the spokes aren't chrome, a little crusty, but you know, working with what I had. So front end is the same trees and lowers, so this is adjustable triple trees, but I just went ahead and added 4x fork tubes. These fork tubes I found on eBay. Don't recall the company that makes them. They for sure came from Japan. I haven't had any problems with them. Headlight and headlight bracket. This was a headlight that my buddy went ahead and gave to me. It's just a 4.5-inch headlight with kind of the top indicator letting you know the headlight's on. Same headlight bracket that I had made for the bike, but I just had it chromed. The handlebars are handlebars that I make. They're just kind of like a false riser that's supposed to kind of mimic the cast riser look with this center lug here, but there's no adjustability with it. It's just brazed in along this area and then rosette welded on the bottom and then uprights welded on. In this case, these are the 12-inch versions of the bars. Just had them on hand. I figured I'd throw them on. This wasn't the original plan for the for what was going to be on the bike, but it's been on there ever since. I've been running these bars since I finished the bike. Honestly, it's just been a really cool setup in terms of like zipping around through California traffic. I love them. They're really comfortable. I'm happy with them. Gas tank is a reproduction Sportster gas tank that I cut out the filler cap, which normally would be on the center on this one. Cut it out, patch welded that hole up. Got this is a Hummer conversion, like it basically switch housing. Lowbrow sells these. Pretty much just gotta use a hole saw, get the holes cut out, and then afterwards there's a tube that runs all the way straight down and you gotta weld that in, and all the wiring comes from, so that's the ignition switch, and all the wiring runs down through that tube and out through here. Figured that I could just do it on my own, so I did that. Normally these Sportster tanks would have the tabs on the bottom that would pretty much you just drill a hole through the backbone and run a bolt through the two tabs on each side, but I made a tab, and that way the rear mounting is more of a traditional type of mounting, and kind of did some molding work to it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and just talk about the work I did to the frame. Windowed out the neck forging here, just a partial window. Nothing crazy, just something, you know, this has already been done before, but I kind of wanted to just try it out and see, I guess, how difficult it would be. And in reality, it's not necessarily difficult, but it definitely takes a lot of time. This portion here normally isn't shaped like that. It would just kind of be a flat piece that goes diagonally down into the top part of this forging. I just built up some silicon bronze and kind of shaped it to kind of give it that look there. Parts of the frame that I had, you know, molded out with body filler and kind of cleaned up the welds. Converted this frame to a drop seat. Purchased some castings from John, who runs Hardtail Choppers. He remanufactures a lot of the original Harley castings. For the fender, it's a FX fender. Normally this whole fender would kind of dip down all the way here, and the tail light would be right somewhere in this area. Buddy of mine gave me this taillight, RH55 taillight, and normally I was just gonna drill the holes out and mount it how it normally would, but he kind of convinced me to try to mold it on, and that's what I did. So this whole thing has been cut apart, drilled the holes out for all the taillight internals, and got it onto the actual fender base. Then afterwards, all this is just brazed in, and then when I went through the filler work, molded all that into the fender. Fender struts they're a blind hole fender strut. I get a lot of questions about these too. Essentially, there's bungs on the inside of the fender strut to where you would run the bolt from the inside to the fender strut rather than running a through bolt with a nut on the back end inside the fender. Gives it a really nice clean look. When I went ahead and shortened the fender, I wanted to tighten up the fender strut because they kind of went out yay long. So both the fender struts are shortened 2 inches. Gives the bike kind of like a nice tighter look on the back end. The wheels, just a 16-inch star hub with the juice drum. Essentially this whole area is pretty much what came on the bike. Same swing arm, just molded all the welds and had it chromed. I'm always messing with this primer to get it to fit a little bit better. Have it spaced out perfectly to where the basket doesn't hit the outer and the pressure plate doesn't hit any of the derby cover screws. So much nicer, cleaner look. There was a hole on that top motor mount there. Welded up and brought it over to the chromer to have that chromed. The foot clutch setup is essentially just a forward control shifter that I just converted, just using chain as the main linkage here. This part of the shifter drilled and tapped a 1/4 hole in order to thread on one of these shifter peg, just like this one, just to have somewhere to rest my heel whenever I'm actually in the clutch. It actually works well as a foot peg when I just need to rest my foot somewhere. The shifter was a shifter that I had made for the bike. That'll finish that out. Found a chrome doorknob. It's old, has some character. Wow, I really need to tighten up that shifter. Should stay on. The seat, just a Cobra seat that I had made. Nobody really made a seat for a drop seat bike. Figured I'd go ahead and make a seat pan. I never made one before, but I figured it shouldn't be too hard. Just shape it and then afterwards get it bolstered. Seat pan here. Just made that 18 gauge. Just a little bolt there on the bottom to kind of hold it all together. And slug to mount into that seat post hole. The wiring is very simple, tucked in. There's only about like 5 wires on this bike. Those main wires right there on that terminal block. What this plate is, it's a piece of angle iron and the original distribution block, or for electronics on what you would find on like a stock swing arm bike that would normally be mounted behind the coil area. This is just my way of tapping into and getting the power where it needs to go. And since I had to redo this whole section, I had to pretty much redo the whole mounting of the oil tank, which is actually pretty interesting because the oil tank with this setup, you would think that since the drop seat kind of brings down this whole line that it would fit in a lot better, but that wasn't the case. So I ended up actually cutting those front mounts off, elevating the whole tank mount so that way it closes up the gap here. Not only did I like have to like cut that out and lift it up, I had to kind of backspace it another 1/8 of an inch. It's kind of hard to see, but the coil, there's a block where the coil kind of screws into, gets in the way of the hardware. So I had to run a shave down socket head Allen. It just worked out. It barely clears, but we got it to work. Oh, and I also painted the bike. The paint was just a color that I got from a hot rod from Japan, and added a whole bunch of pearls and all that stuff to it. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this bike. You can let me know if you guys have any questions. There's gonna be more builds. That's that. You don't have to subscribe, you don't have to like, you don't have to comment, do whatever you want. Peace.